What is up, trail goblins? Today we are going to be talking about the 2024 Hardrock 100. But before I get into that, did you know that 92% of you aren't subscribed? Hit that subscribe button or your next run will feel like you're running at 14,000 feet. You want to be gasping for air and have no way to get it? Just kidding. Please subscribe. Thank you. All right, so quick overview of the Hardrock 100. It's a 100-mile race in the San Juan mountain range in Colorado. It starts in Silverton, goes around the mountain range, and then ends back in Silverton. It has 33,000 feet of elevation gain. It has an average elevation of 11,000 feet, with the high point of the race at 14,048 feet. That's right, you are summiting a 14er during the race. But yeah, sounds easy enough, right? Kilian Jornet, François D'Haene, and Courtney Dauwalter have all held course records here, and it's probably the second most competitive race in America, and my personal favorite race in America. To watch. I've never done it, I love watching it. An honorable mention before we get into the race recap is Zach Miller. Oh, a moment of silence for him. He got appendicitis a week before the race. He thought that he wasn't going to be able to race, did some trial running, then said, I'm going to start the race. Then the race director said, no, you're not. And he did not end up starting this year. So sad, so excited for 2025 Hardrock 100 when he comes back and wins the thing. But yeah, till next year, brother. On July 12th, 2024 at 6 a.m., the Hardrock 100 endurance run began. This year it was in the clockwise direction, so it switches direction every year. Some of the contenders for this year were François D'Haene, who currently holds the course record for the counterclockwise loop. Jason Schlarb, who won the race back in 2016, tied with Kilian Jornet. And Courtney freaking Dauwalter, who holds the course record already in both directions. That's right, she's going for her third win this year. Third in a row, I should mention. 2 hours and 15 minutes into the race, our race leaders came into the first aid station at mile 11, the KT aid station. Leading the race was the ancient, old, crusty, dusty, disgusting. Just kidding. The announcers and everyone who talks about Ludovic Pommeret always mention his age because he is so good for his age. But he is 49 years old and he is running so strong still. He came into the aid station in first place. Then we had another French athlete right behind him, François D'Haene. And then right behind him was the Swiss athlete, Diego Pazos. About 10 minutes later, coming fifth into the aid station overall was Courtney Dauwalter, followed by Katarina Harmuth about 4 minutes behind her, followed by Camille Brouillat about 1 minute behind her. 7 miles later at the Chapman aid station, Ludovic came bounding in about 3 hours and 40 minutes into the race, followed by François about 3 minutes behind him, and Diego about 2 minutes behind François. 4 hours and 5 minutes into the race, Courtney Dauwalter came through the Chapman aid station, followed 5 minutes later by Camille Brouillat, and Katarina Harmuth about 2 minutes behind her. And if you didn't get to watch the live stream this weekend, here's one of the most amazing views of the whole course. The whole thing is just amazing, but in my opinion, this is by far the most beautiful place I've ever seen probably in my entire life. At the Telluride aid station at kilometer 50 of the race, runners had already covered about 9,500 feet of ascent and descent. So the pain of the day was just starting to settle in. Ludovic came charging into the aid station in 5 hours and 36 minutes. And this is when talk of him breaking the course record began. He was literally matching Kilian's course record pace from the year that Kilian got the course record. 4 minutes later, François came into the aid station, sat down, wiped his face off, and was out of the aid station. 18 minutes behind François was Diego, who was bringing his family along with him into the aid station. Then something shocking happened. Courtney Dauwalter came into the 50-kilometer aid station and was not alone. I don't know if this has ever happened to Courtney in any of her other races she's ever done. But Courtney and Camille were both coming into the 50K aid station at the same time together. It was crazy. And they were both 2 minutes under Courtney Dauwalter's course record from the previous years. Then 30 plus minutes later, Katarina came into the aid station. At the Governor Basin aid station at mile 36, Ludo came flying through the aid station 15 minutes ahead of François D'Haene. And you could tell this is when he really started to struggle. 22 minutes behind him was Jason Schlarb, who had worked his way up the field and was pacing himself like a champ. Courtney Dauwalter again came into the aid station about 2 minutes ahead of her own course record time. And then 4 minutes behind her was Camille, which was probably the closest a woman has ever been to her this far into a race. At the Ouray aid station 44 miles into the race, Ludo was pulling away and making this race his own. And now he was 2 minutes ahead of Kilian's course record. 27 minutes later, François came into the aid station, followed 2 minutes later by Jason Schlarb. So Jason was slowly working his way up and he was catching François. Courtney came into the aid station still 5th place overall, which is incredible, with Camille just 6 minutes behind her and Katarina 15 minutes behind her. So at this point, it literally could have been any woman's race. One mistake by any of these 3 women and any of them could have taken the race. 58 miles into the race, or about 100 kilometers in, at the Animal Forks aid station, Ludo came in 10 minutes ahead of Kilian's course record. 10 minutes! And he looked the same at mile 58 as he did at mile 1 of the race. An hour and 14 minutes behind him was Jason Schlarb, so it was literally Ludovic's race to lose at this point. 10 minutes behind Jason was Diego, and now you're probably wondering, what happened to François? Well, 13 minutes behind Diego, François came in, sat down in a chair in the aid station, and just started sobbing. About 30 minutes after sitting in the chair, François knew that he needed to withdraw from the race. Turns out that about 15 days before the race, François got a pretty bad virus, which made it so he couldn't acclimatize correctly, and thus costing him the race. Oh, moment of silence for François. Courtney came into the aid station 13 hours and 25 minutes into the race, followed by Camille, who is now about 30 minutes behind Courtney. So as you could tell, Camille was starting to fade, and Katarina was catching up to her and now was just 22 minutes behind her. 73 miles into the race at the Sherman aid station, Ludo came into the aid station feeling strong. Literally, like he came in flexing into the aid station. 2 hours later, 2 hours after Ludo had come through the aid station, Jason Schlarb showed up, followed by Diego, who was now just 8 minutes behind Jason. So at this point, Ludo literally could have walked it in the rest of the race and probably still would have won. But he had that course record on his mind. Courtney came in at 17 hours and 9 minutes and was now about 30 minutes ahead of her own course record. You know, just Courtney doing Courtney things. Camille came in about an hour behind Courtney, followed by Katarina about 14 minutes behind Camille. Katarina was starting to close the gap. At this point, Ludo was so far ahead in the race, they didn't even have a live camera set up at the Maggie aid station at mile 87 of the race. And now Diego was in second place, followed by Jason about 5 minutes behind him. So the race for second was on. Courtney came into the aid station right as Ludo finished his race. Like literally the exact same time. Like the announcer at the Maggie aid station could literally be heard telling Courtney that Ludo had just won the race.
Ludo's finishing right now.
No way.
Right now, dude.
2.5 hours later, Camille came into the aid station, followed by Katarina, who is now 55 minutes behind her. At 21 hours, 33 minutes, and 8 seconds, Ludo won the Hardrock 100 2024 and set a new course record, beating Killian's time by 3 minutes from 2 years prior. 49 years young and crushing it. Also, I love the live stream, don't get me wrong. It was amazing. I loved every second that I watched of it. It was incredible. The scenery, the announcers, everything was fantastic, except for the announcers at the finish line. Let me explain. Here is what they sounded like as Ludo finished the race.
Oh, that's a course record.
Wow.
There you go, Ludo Pommeret, the 2024 Hardrock men's champion.
And here was my reaction. Come on, Ludo! Woo! Let's go, Ludo! Woo! And yes, I am available for Higher Mountain Outpost. Diego Pazos came in second place, just barely holding off Jason Schlarb. Diego finished in a time of 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 36 seconds. 3 hours behind Ludo. Jason Schlarb, however, finished just 9 minutes after Diego, in a time of 24 hours and 48 minutes, and was the first American. Courtney freaking Dauwalter did it again, breaking her own course record from 2 years prior, in a time of 26 hours, 11 minutes, and 49 seconds. She broke her own course record by 33 minutes, missing the overall podium by just 1 spot, again coming in 4th place overall. Again, here's the announcers telling that Courtney Dauwalter just won the Hardrock 100.
Courtney Dauwalter.
26:11:45. A three-peat.
And here was my reaction to Courtney Dauwalter winning the Hardrock 100. Let's go, Courtney! Woo-hoo! You're incredible! You're amazing! Woo! Camille Bruyas finished in a time of 29 hours and 28 minutes. 3 hours and 27 minutes behind Courtney Dauwalter. I think she might have pushed herself just a little too hard in the beginning of the race. And Katarina Harmuth finished just an hour behind her, in a time of 30 hours and 29 minutes. And there you have it, you greedy little goblins. Let me know what you thought of the race down in the comments below. And vote for me to be the finish line announcer for Hardrock 100 2025. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, smash that like button and subscribe now to become an official trail goblin. We're gobbling and we're hobbling up trails. And guess what? Sprained ankles don't even bother us. I don't know.